The gunshots came from the east. 3 shots, spaced out, deliberate. Silas Drummond set down his hammer and stood still. The fence post could wait. In 16 years of living in the San Pedro Valley, he had learned one truth that never changed. Gunfire never brought good news. The April sun beat down hard on his shoulders. Sweat dripped into his eyes. He wiped it away and listened. The echo faded into the dry Arizona air. Then silence. The kind of silence that pressed down on a man's chest like a gravestone. Silas checked the Colt on his hip. 6 rounds. Always 6 rounds. A habit from the war that he never broke. Some habits kept a man breathing. The dust cloud appeared on the horizon first. 2 horses. Moving fast. Coming straight toward his ranch like arrows aimed at his heart. Silas narrowed his eyes against the glare. He recognized the lead rider before he could see his face. The way the man sat in the saddle. The arrogance carved into every movement. The way he rode like he owned the very air around him. Harlan Ketch. The name hit Silas like a mule kick to the chest. 16 years since he had seen that face. 16 years of hoping he would never see it again. But the past had a way of finding a man. No matter how far he ran, no matter how quiet he lived. Some ghosts refused to stay buried. Harlan rode up to the fence line and stopped. His horse snorted and stamped. Behind him, a second horse carried a woman, Apache. Her hands were tied to the saddle horn with rough hemp rope. Blood stained her left shoulder, dark, dried, hours old at least. Her black hair hung loose and tangled around her face. Dust coated her skin, but her eyes, Lord, her eyes. They burned with a fury that made Silas take an involuntary step backward. This woman was not broken. She was coiled, waiting, like a rattlesnake about to strike. The second rider pulled up beside Harlan. Silas recognized him too. Virgil Kane, a hired gun with 12 confirmed kills. Probably more that never got reported. The kind of man who smiled right before he pulled the trigger. The kind who slept just fine afterward. Virgil carried a Smith & Wesson Schofield on his hip, a gun that could be reloaded with one hand, half a second faster than a Colt in the right hands. And Virgil had the right hands. Harlan swung down from his horse. He moved slow, confident, like a man who had all the time in the world and knew exactly how he planned to spend it. Drummond. His voice was gravel and honey, smooth on the surface, rough underneath. Long time. Silas did not answer. His hand stayed near his Colt, close but not threatening. Not yet. Harlan walked to the second horse and pulled out a knife. He cut the rope holding the woman in one clean motion. She fell hard, hit the ground and rolled through the dust, but she was on her feet before either man could reach her. Blood dripped from her shoulder. Her breath came ragged and shallow, but she stood straight, chin up, eyes forward, like a warrior facing execution and refusing to kneel. Harlan laughed, a cold sound, empty, like wind through a dead man's bones. "Keep her here," he said to Silas. "3 days. I will pay $50 when I come back for her." "What happened to her shoulder?" "She killed 2 of my men before we got the rope on her." Harlan's smile widened. Cruel. Proud. Would have been 3 if her knife had not slipped. Impressive for a squaw. "Do you not think—" Silas looked at the woman. She met his gaze without flinching, without blinking. In her eyes he saw something he recognized from long ago. The look of someone who had already decided how they would die. And it would not be on their knees. It would not be begging. "Why bring her here?" Silas asked. "Because you are far enough from town that nobody asks questions? Because you keep to yourself? Because you live like a hermit and mind your own business?" Harlan paused. His eyes glittered like a snake's. "And because you owe me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy, poisonous. Silas felt the old weight settle onto his shoulders, the weight he had carried for 16 years, the weight of Shiloh. I do not owe you anything, Ketch. Harlan stepped closer. His hand rested easy on the Remington at his hip. Model 1875. The same kind of gun Confederate officers had carried in the war. The same kind that had killed Union boys by the thousands. Shiloh Drummond, April 1862. You remember. I remember. You were Union infantry, 6th Ohio. I was 3rd Tennessee Artillery. Harlan's voice dropped low, intimate, like sharing a secret between old friends. You refused to shoot me when you had the chance. You walked away. Let others do the dirty work. I refused to murder wounded prisoners. And yet 12 men died anyway, because you walked away instead of stopping it. Harlan's eyes gleamed with something between rage and satisfaction. You think silence made you innocent? You think walking away washed your hands clean? Silas said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Harlan spoke the truth, the ugly truth that Silas had been running from for 16 years. He had not pulled the trigger, but he had heard every shot, counted every one, and he had said nothing, done nothing, just walked away and let it happen. 3 days, Harlan said. He mounted his horse. Virgil Kane had not moved, had not spoken, just watched with those dead eyes that saw everything and cared about nothing. Do not do anything stupid, Drummond. Old debts have a way of collecting interest. They rode away. The dust swallowed them whole, and Silas stood alone with the Apache woman bleeding in his yard. He pulled his knife slow. Let her see it coming. She tensed, ready to fight even with her hands still half numb from the rope. I am cutting the binds, he said. Nothing else. He cut the last of the hemp from her wrists. She pulled free and rubbed the raw skin where the rope had bitten deep into her flesh. Red welts circled her wrists like bloody bracelets. You fought in the war between white men, she said. Her English was clear, educated, her voice steady despite the pain in her shoulder. I did. Which side kills my people now? The question stopped him cold. No one had ever asked him that before. No one had ever forced him to answer it. Both, he said finally, and neither side admits it. She nodded once. Not agreement, recognition. The nod of someone who already knew the answer and was testing whether this stranger would speak truth or pretty lies. I am Nalin, she said, daughter of Takyom, chief of the Chiricahua. Silas Drummond, I am nobody's son anymore. Something flickered in her eyes, not quite a smile, but close. That night Silas sat on the porch with his Winchester across his knees. 15 rounds in the magazine, 57 more inside the cabin. The woman had refused to sleep under his roof. She sat in the shadows near the water trough, watching the darkness, listening to sounds he could not hear. The desert cold crept in as the stars came out. Coyotes yipped somewhere in the distance. An owl called from the barn. Silas had survived Shiloh, survived the long march home, survived 16 years of silence in this valley. But he knew men like Harlan Ketch. They did not leave witnesses. They did not forget old grudges. And they sure as hell did not pay $50 for anything worth less than blood. Something was coming, something worse than 3 gunshots in the distance. And this time, Silas Drummond would not walk away. Morning broke gray and heavy over the Chiricahua Mountains. Storm clouds gathered on the peaks like dark armies massing for war. Silas could smell rain coming, could feel it in his bones the way old wounds always ached before the weather turned. Nalin had not slept. Neither had he. She sat on the porch step now, watching him work with eyes that missed nothing. He fixed the corral gate that had been loose for months, kept his hands busy while his mind turned over the problem of Harlan Ketch. The problem had no good solutions, only bad ones and worse ones. He sells my people, Nalin said. Her voice came flat and hard. like she was describing the weather instead of horrors beyond imagining. To the silver mines south of the border, Sonora, Chihuahua, they work underground until their lungs fill with rock dust, until their backs break, until they die in the dark. No one ever returns. Silas stopped working. The hammer hung loose in his grip. How many of 43 in 2 winters, men, women, children old enough to swing a pick? My cousins among them. I watched my aunt waste away waiting for sons who will never come home. The number settled into his gut like swallowed lead. 43 people, families destroyed, lives ended in darkness 1,000 miles from home. Why did he take you? I am daughter of Takeom, chief of our band. Ketch wants $500 ransom. If my father does not pay within the moon, I go to the Ramirez mine in Cananea. I will be worth more there. A chief's daughter working herself to death. A message to all who would resist. $500. 10 times what Harlan had promised Silas for keeping her. The mathematics told the whole ugly story. Harlan never intended to come back with money. He intended to come back with bullets. Around midday, a rider appeared on the road from town. Small, young, pushing his horse hard enough to leave a trail of dust a mile long. Silas reached for his rifle. Then he recognized the horse. Spotted gray mare. Belonged to Patterson's store. And the boy riding it. Ezra Potts, 14 years old. Worked sweeping floors and stocking shelves in Dry Creek. Honest kid, hard-working. The kind of boy who still believed that right and wrong meant something. Ezra pulled up hard in the yard. His horse was lathered white with foam. The boy's face was pale beneath the sunburn. His hands shook on the reins. "Mr. Drummond, sir." The words tumbled out fast, breathless, terrified. "Harlan Ketch ain't waiting 3 days. He is coming tonight. I heard him talking with Virgil Kane at the Silver Dollar Saloon. They have 8 men, 8 guns. He said something about burning the Union man's place to ashes, about finishing what should have ended at Shiloh." Silas felt ice spread through his veins. Not surprise. He had expected something like this. But knowing it was coming and hearing it confirmed were different animals entirely. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a silver dollar, pressed it into the boy's trembling hand. "Ride back to town, Ezra. Tell old man Patterson to keep you inside tonight. Lock the doors. Do not look out the windows. Do not come back here no matter what you hear. Understand?" "Yes, sir." The boy clutched the coin like a talisman. "Are you going to be all right, Mr. Drummond? That is not your concern. Go now. Ride fast and do not stop for anyone." Ezra went. His horse's hooves pounded the hard-packed earth. The dust from his passing hung in the still air long after he vanished over the ridge. Nolan stood beside Silas now. Her face showed nothing, but her dark eyes tracked the horizon like a hawk hunting prey. "You could give me to them," she said. "Save your ranch, your cattle, your life. I would not blame you." Silas shook his head slow. "I have spent 16 years running from the man I was at Shiloh, hiding from what I did not do, what I should have done. I am done running." "What happened there?" "At this Shiloh." The question opened a door that had been locked for 16 years. Rusted hinges screamed in his memory. Ghosts stirred in the darkness behind it. Silas sat down on the porch step. The Winchester lay across his knees. He stared at the mountains going dark with the coming storm and let the words come. April 7th, 1862. We had pushed the Confederates back after 2 days of the worst fighting I ever saw. Men dying in heaps, blood running in the creek beds, the sound of screaming that never seemed to stop. He paused, breathed, forced himself to continue. "We took prisoners, wounded rebels who could not run. Our captain ordered us to execute them." Nolan sat beside him, not close but not far, listening with her whole body. "And you?" "I refused. dropped my rifle in the mud and walked away. Said I would not murder helpless men, but his voice cracked. He swallowed hard. But I watched 3 others do it. 12 prisoners. I heard every shot, counted them like a man counts his own heartbeats, and I said nothing afterward. Did not report it. Did not testify when the army came asking questions. Just kept silent and pretended it never happened. Why? Because the captain was my blood cousin. Because I told myself silence was not the same as pulling the trigger. Because I was 26 years old and scared and did not want to hang for telling truth that nobody wanted to hear. And Ketch, he was there. He was one of the prisoners, the only one who survived. He played dead, lay there in the pile of bodies with a bullet in his leg until nightfall. Then he crawled 6 miles through the dark to Confederate lines. He has been hunting me ever since, waiting, planning, and now here we are. Nalin was silent for a long moment. The wind picked up, cold, sharp, smelling of rain and distant lightning. So tonight is not about me, she said finally, or ransom money, or your ranch. No, tonight is about finishing what started when I walked away from that rifle. Harlan Ketch has waited 16 years for this moment, and I am done giving him reasons to wait longer. Nalin rose to her feet. She looked down at him with something new in her eyes, something that might become respect if it lived long enough. Then we fight together. I have my own debts to collect from Harlan Ketch. You do not owe me anything. No, I do not. But I owe him blood, and tonight I will take payment in full. They spent the afternoon preparing for war. Silas laid out everything he had. The Winchester Model 1873, 15 rounds in the magazine, 57 more in boxes, effective range 200 yards in good light, his Colt single-action army, 6 rounds loaded, 6 more in his belt, the Bowie knife he had carried since the war, 12 inches of good steel that had never failed him, and a Remington Derringer he kept in his lockbox. 2 shots, 41 caliber, small enough to hide in a boot. He handed the Derringer to Nalin. Close range only, when you can see the whites of their eyes and smell what they had for breakfast. Do not waste these. She checked the weapon, spun the barrels, nodded. I killed 2 men with 1 knife before they caught me. 2 bullets will be plenty. Night fell early. The storm clouds swallowed the last light like a hungry black mouth. Rain began, not heavy enough to drown sounds, just enough to blur vision and make the darkness deeper. Silas climbed onto the cabin roof. The shingles were slick with rain. He wedged himself against the chimney and laid the Winchester across his knees. From here he could see every approach except the east. The east was sheer cliff face. No man could come that way. Nalin vanished into the shadows near the barn. He did not try to track her movements. She flowed through the darkness like water through fingers, like smoke in the wind, like someone who had learned to become invisible long before this night. An hour passed, 2. Then they came. 8 riders materialized from the storm, spreading out as they approached, north, west, south, moving with the discipline of men who had done this before, who had burned ranches and killed witnesses and ridden away rich with blood money. Harlan Ketch sat his horse in the center, giving orders with small gestures, directing his killers like a conductor leading an orchestra of death. Silas waited. Patience was a weapon too, often the deadliest one. The first man reached the fence, started to climb over. His rifle glinted briefly in a flash of distant lightning. Silas squeezed the trigger. The Winchester cracked once, sharp, final, 180 yards. The man pitched backward off the fence. He did not move again. Chaos erupted below. Shouts of alarm, horses screaming, wild shots cracking through the rain. Virgil Kane's voice cut through it all. Cold, professional. He is on the roof, spread out. Do not bunch up. Make him work for every shot. Silas found another target. Squeezed. Another man fell. Two down, six plus Harlan plus Virgil still standing. From somewhere near the barn, two sharp cracks split the night. Smaller caliber. The Derringer. A man screamed, then went silent. Silas allowed himself a grim smile. Nalan had found her prey, but there were too many of them. They had spread too wide, and now one of them had a torch. The barn caught first. Dry hay and old timber. 16 years of hard work went up like kindling in seconds. The flames roared hungry and orange into the rain-dark sky. The firelight changed everything, made shadows dance, made targets harder to find, made Silas a silhouette against the chimney for anyone below to see. He fired twice more. One hit, one miss. The miss bothered him. He was better than that, had been better than that since before the war. But smoke choked his lungs now. The heat made the air shimmer like water, hard to aim, harder to breathe. The fire was spreading, jumping from barn to fence to the woodpile stacked against the cabin wall. Harlan's voice boomed across the burning yard. "Come out, Drummond, or watch everything you have built turn to ash. This time I am not playing dead." Silas fired again. His shot went wide. The magazine clicked empty. He reached for more rounds. Then a new sound cut through the roar of flames and rain. A horn, deep and long, rising from the eastern cliffs where no man could possibly be. Silas froze with his hand on the ammunition. He knew that sound, had heard it once before, years ago, on a night when he had wandered too far east and thought he would not live to see morning. Nalan appeared from the smoke below. Her face was streaked with blood and soot and rain, but her eyes blazed with something fierce and bright. "Shia!" she breathed. Her voice cracked with emotion she had not shown before. "My father, he has found me." They came out of the eastern darkness like ghosts riding nightmares. 4 figures, moving in perfect silence despite the rocky ground and driving rain. Appearing where no rider should be possible, where the cliffs were too steep for horses and the trails too narrow for men. Yet here they were. Takium rode at the front. 60 winters had silvered his hair and carved deep lines into his face, but he sat his horse like a man half his age, like a warrior who had never known defeat and never would. His eyes reflected the firelight, cold, ancient, merciless. Behind him rode Goyakla, 25 years old, burning with barely contained fury. He carried a Springfield rifle across his saddle. Army issue, probably taken from soldiers who no longer needed it. His painted face twisted with hunger for violence. 2 more warriors flanked them, silent as stones, painted for war. Harlan Ketch and his remaining men stopped cold. The mathematics of survival had suddenly changed. 5 outlaws, 4 Apache warriors, 1 rancher on a burning roof. The equations no longer favored the hunters. Takium's voice rolled across the burning yard like distant thunder. "Harlan Ketch, you steal my daughter. You sell my people into darkness. Tonight the debt comes due. Tonight you pay in blood." Harlan recovered fast. He always did. Adapting to changing circumstances was how men like him stayed alive. "This is not your fight, old man. This is between me and Drummond, a matter from the white man's war. Ride away and take your braves with you. You made it my fight the moment you touched my blood." Silas climbed down from the roof. His boots hit the muddy ground hard. He walked toward Takium, not behind the chief, not in front, beside him. 2 men facing a common enemy. Takium turned his head slightly. Those ancient eyes studied Silas like a hawk studying a field mouse. Weighing, measuring, judging. "You protected my daughter. She protected herself. I just gave her walls to fight behind." Something shifted in the old warrior's weathered face. Not approval, not yet, but the beginning of something that might become respect. A man who speaks true about his own limits. This is rare among your people. Then everything happened at once. Virgil Kane stepped forward. His hand moved toward his gun. Every Apache rifle swung toward him, but instead of aiming at the warriors, Virgil spun and fired twice into his own men. Two outlaws dropped dead in the mud, shot through the back by the man they had trusted. Virgil's voice cracked across the burning yard like a bullwhip. I signed up to collect bounties, catch, not to fight Apaches and die in the mud for your personal vengeance. You lied to me, said this was about money, about business. You never told me this was about some 16-year-old grudge from the goddamn war. Harlan's face twisted with rage. You are making a fatal mistake, Virgil. No, you made the mistake when you thought I would die for free. Virgil holstered his gun, raised his hands. I am done, finished, walking away. He backed toward his horse, mounted slow, kept his hands visible. The three remaining outlaws looked at each other. Fear replaced arrogance. Calculation replaced bloodlust. One of them broke and ran for his horse. The other two raised their hands in surrender. Goyakla started after the runner. His rifle came up. Takayom raised one weathered hand. The young warrior stopped. Let the coward go. He will carry our story to other cowards. That is worth more than his death. The two who surrendered were disarmed, bound with their own rope, left kneeling in the mud to contemplate their choices, which left only Harlan Ketch. He stood alone near the burning barn. Flames roared behind him. Sparks swirled upward like angry fireflies. His fine clothes were ruined with mud and soot. His carefully combed hair hung wild around his face, but his eyes still burned with the same cold fire they had carried at Shiloh. Well then, Drummond, his voice came steady, almost peaceful. I suppose it comes down to this after all. Just you and me, the way it should have been 16 years ago. Silas walked toward him, stopped 40 feet away. The distance felt right, final, like the space between a period and the next sentence. I refuse to murder wounded men, Ketch. That was not weakness. No, weakness was walking away and letting others do it for you. Harlan's thin smile showed teeth. Weakness was watching, counting the shots, hearing the screams, and saying nothing afterward. You think your hands are clean? You just pulled the trigger from farther away. The words hit home. Everyone found its mark in the soft places of Silas's soul, the places he had tried to wall off for 16 years. I have lived with that silence every single day since Shiloh. It ends tonight, one way or another. Yes. Harlan's hand dropped to his side, loose, ready, hungry. It certainly does. They faced each other in the firelight. Two men shaped by the same moment in history. Two men who had carried that moment forward for 16 bloody years. Two men who had always known this reckoning was coming. The rain had stopped. The only sounds were the crackle of dying flames and the heavy breathing of horses. The Apache warriors stepped back. This was between the two men now. No one else had the right to interfere. Nalin watched from the shadows. Her hand gripped the empty derringer. 2 shots spent. Nothing left but faith in a man she had known for 2 days. Silas breathed in deep, let the air fill his lungs, breathed out slow, let the world narrow down to this moment, this choice, this single heartbeat of time. Harlan was faster. Everyone who had ever seen him draw knew that. His Remington cleared leather a quarter second before the Colt. The muzzle came up. Flames spat from the barrel. The bullet punched through Silas's left shoulder. Pain exploded white-hot through his body. His arm went dead numb. But Silas was not trying to be fast. He was trying to be right. The Colt bucked once in his steady hand. One shot, dead center. Harlan staggered backward. He looked down at the hole in his chest, looked up at Silas with something like wonder. You actually did it. Blood bubbled on his lips. After all these years, you actually pulled the trigger. He fell forward, face first into the mud. The firelight painted his corpse in shades of orange and black. Silas stood over the body. The Colt hung heavy in his hand. Smoke curled from the barrel. The war has been over for 16 years, Ketch. You just refused to let it end. He holstered the gun, took one step toward the cabin. Then his knees buckled and the world went gray. Hands caught him before he hit the ground. Strong hands, gentle hands. Nalan's face swam into view above him. Her voice came from very far away. Stay awake. The bullet must come out. You will survive this. I did not lose 2 of my people tonight just to watch you bleed out on your own land. Will I live? You do not have permission to die. Stay awake. He tried to smile. Probably failed. Yes, ma'am. Morning came soft and golden. The storm had blown itself out in the night. The air smelled clean, washed, reborn. Silas woke in his own bed. His shoulder was wrapped tight with clean bandages. The pain had faded to a dull throb that hurt only when he breathed or moved or thought about moving. Takiom sat in the cabin's only chair, watching with those ancient, patient eyes. You live, the old chief said. It was not a question. Appears that way. The bullet is removed. The wound is clean. You will heal, but the arm will be weak for many moons, perhaps always. Silas tried to sit up, failed, tried again, made it halfway before the pain won. Through the window he could see the damage. The barn was gone. Just a pile of smoking char and twisted metal. Half the fence lay in ruins. Scorch marks blackened the cabin walls. But the cabin stood. The corral stood. The cattle had scattered in the chaos, but they would come back. They always did. My daughter speaks of staying, Takium said, to help with the rebuilding. She is a woman of strong will. I do not command her choices. Never have. Never could. Silas thought about that. A woman of strong will. That seemed like an understatement. What about your people? They need her. My people need many things. They need safe passage through this valley, a place to trade without soldiers watching every exchange, a man that both whites and Chiricahua can trust. Takium paused. Let the words sink in. You could be that man, Drummond, a bridge between 2 worlds that have forgotten how to speak to each other. I am just a rancher with a burned barn and a bullet hole in my shoulder. You were a soldier once, a rancher after. Now perhaps something else, something new. Goyakla appeared in the doorway. The young warrior leaned against the frame with studied casualness. The war paint was gone from his face. He looked almost peaceful. I know how to build fences, he said. My sister showed me once, when she was not busy killing white men. Nalan stepped into view behind him. She punched her brother's arm hard enough to make him wince. I taught you nothing. You learned by watching. Badly. I pay attention when I feel like it. Takium rose from the chair, old bones creaking, old muscles protesting, but still strong, still unbowed. I will return in 1 moon. We will speak more then about bridges and passages and trust. He moved to the door, stopped, looked back. You are a strange man, Silas Drummond, but perhaps the world needs strange men. The normal ones have made a mess of things. He left. Goyakla followed after one more exchange glance with his sister. Some silent communication passed between them. Understanding, acceptance, perhaps even approval. Then Silas and Nalan were alone. She stood in the morning light that streamed through the window, strong, unbowed, the same woman who had refused to break when Harlan threw her in the dirt, the same woman who had killed a man with 2 shots in the dark. Your father is right, Silas said. Your people need you. My people have survived without me for 28 winters. They will survive a few more weeks. She moved to the window, looked out at the ruined barn, the broken fences, the work that needed doing. Besides, you cannot rebuild this place with one arm. I have managed alone before. Before you had two working arms and no bullet holes. Things change. He could not argue with that logic, did not want to. There is a spare room. Well, there was a spare room. The fire may have reached it. I will sleep in the barn. She paused, allowed herself the smallest smile. When you build a new one. 1 month later, the new barn was half finished. The frame stood tall against the blue Arizona sky. Fresh lumber gleamed yellow in the sunlight. The smell of sawdust and sweat filled the air. Silas worked with his right arm mostly. The left was growing stronger day by day, but still could not handle heavy lifting. He had learned to adapt, learned to accept help, learned that needing others was not the same as being weak. Nalin worked beside him, hammering, sawing, lifting boards into place, not talking much, not needing to. Two people building the same thing, sharing the same purpose. The fence line stretched toward the mountains now, post by post, mile by mile, a line that would mark the boundary of something new, something that had not existed before. My father sent word, Nalin said one afternoon. She drove a nail home with 3 precise strikes. He asked when I am returning to the mountains. Silas set another post in the hole he had dug, packed dirt around its base. What did you tell him? I told him I will return when the fence is finished. He nodded, kept working. That is a lot of fence. I know. They worked in silence until the sun began to set. Then they sat on the new porch Silas had built to replace the one that had burned. Watched the sky turn red and gold and finally purple. Do you regret it? Nalin asked. Not giving me to catch that first night. Silas considered the question, turned it over in his mind like a man examining a stone he had found in a river. No. Do you regret not putting that knife in my back while I slept? She almost laughed. The sound surprised them both. Ask me again in 10 years. The stars came out, the same stars that had watched Shiloh, the same stars that had seen Silas carry his silence across 1,000 miles, the same stars that would watch whatever came next. The nightmares, Nalin said quietly. The ones about the people you could not save. Do they ever stop? Silas was quiet for a long moment. The wind whispered through the new grass. Somewhere a coyote sang to the rising moon. No, they do not stop, but they get quieter over time. The faces blur, the screams fade, and one morning you wake up and realize you slept the whole night through without counting gunshots in your dreams. How long does that take? 16 years, give or take. She nodded slowly, taking that in, accepting it. Then I will wait. I have always been good at waiting. So have I. Maybe too good. The West was never won by heroes from dime novels. It was not conquered by outlaws with prices on their heads. It was built by ordinary people who made extraordinary choices, who stood when running was easier, who rebuilt when burning was simpler, who trusted when every instinct screamed betrayal. Silas Drummond had spent 16 years carrying the silence of Shiloh, the weight of shots he had not fired, the guilt of words he had not spoken. He had built a ranch in the middle of nowhere and told himself he was done with the world. But the world was not done with him. It took one Apache woman who refused to break, one old enemy who refused to die, one night of fire and blood and choices that could never be unmade, and now something new was growing in the San Pedro Valley. Not peace exactly. The West did not do peace, but something close to it, something real. Two people from different worlds, working side by side, building something neither could build alone. The fence stretched toward the mountains, post by post, day by day, a line that divided nothing and connected everything. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the sun was rising on a brand new day. If you enjoyed this story, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you want more tales from the Old West, hit that subscribe button. The frontier has 1,000 stories left to tell. This was just one of them. Until next time, ride safe out there.